Hi guys, welcome once again to my channel. Please, before you go ahead with this video, please kindly hit the subscribe button. And I think that's the only way you can make sure that more people have access to these resources. I make videos that people actually need, and I make videos based on the questions that people ask. And beyond videos, I share resources that people would find useful. So at the end of this video, I'm going to share a sample template on the topic I'm going to talk about. Once again, hit the subscribe button. Just subscribe, give it a thumbs up so that this video can reach more people, and feel free to share with your friends. And for the topic that I'll be talking about, let me reiterate that I'm not an expert in this, but I just want to share what has worked for me. So, like, it's not like I'm saying this is a one size fits all. I just want to share what has worked for me, what my process was like, and I will share the documents that I used for my application. Yeah. So today I'm going to be talking about how to apply for your study visa to Canada. I know a lot of people find it puzzling. Personally, I spent a lot of money when I was going through the process of applying for my visa. I hired an immigrant lawyer, wasted money on that. I just threw money around a lot that I didn't need to do. Now, despite all the money I spent, I eventually had to do it myself. Like, I had to apply to schools myself. I had to put all my documents together. I had to write my SOP myself. I had to do a lot of rewarding, editing, and all of those stuff based on research. So I believe you don't have to spend so much money to do your study permit. You can do it yourself. I have done it. And guess what? My processing time was just 3 weeks. Like, I know it's relatively it's different for various people. Like, people have different processing time and all that. But for my study permit, first time applicant, I got it in 3 weeks. And even when I did my extension only lasted for 1.5 weeks. So I know application and processing time differs. Again, I'm not an expert in this, but I think when you get all the documents right, you increase your chances. You certainly increase your chances of getting approval, and of course getting it faster, because you are making the visa officers work very, very easy. And once they can verify you, explain everything they need, they don't have to spend so much time on your application. That's my opinion. Again, I'm not an expert in this, right? I think I should really clarify that a lot. So let's get started. So SOP, or letter of explanation, or whatever you want to call it, like people call it different names. But again, it's a letter, and irrespective of the name you call it, the visa officer doesn't care. Like, just explain what, or just say what your plans are and all of this stuff. So I'm gonna share 7 points that your SOPs should include, and at the end of this video, I'm going to share a sample template that I personally used. I made a few tweaks, took out some personal information, but I'm going to share it, and it's pinned in the comment section. So let's get started. So as you all know, an SOP is more like an expository essay, so to say. Like, it's just you explaining stuff and talking about yourself, your plans, and all of those things. So I kind of structure every of my application, like even when I was applying to graduate school and all of those things. If you've checked my video, I like to structure every of my content with subheadings. And this was what I did for my SOP when I was applying to IRCC for my study permit or my study visa. Again, this is not a one size fits all. I've seen people who did not use this structure yet they got approval, but I just think having a structure, having a subheading gives the visa officer an idea about what you're going to talk about. And we will see all of these things in the template I'm going to share with you. So the first thing, introduction, right? Introduction comes first when you're writing your statement of purpose or letter of explanation for your Canada study visa application. Introduce yourself, talk about the goal, talk about yourself, talk about what you're applying to, talk about the institution, the college or the university you're applying to. Just basically introduce yourself, right? I don't want to dwell so much on that because it's pretty much straightforward. And then the next thing is talk about your education and employment history. This is where it gets a lot tricky because again, IRCC wants to make sure that you're not just applying to any program, or you're not just doing things at random. They want to make sure that there's a nexus between your previous experiences and the program you're coming to study. And I suspect now that more policies are coming up, they're gonna be more strict in this area. So you want to discuss education and employment history that are relevant to the course that you've already been admitted to, right? I don't really want to make this video super long because again, it's all about the resources I'm sharing. And number three, what's your motivation for pursuing further studies in Canada? They want to know why you're choosing Canada. They want to know why you're not staying back in your home country, or why you're not going to another country to take the course. You really have to be specific here. Don't be vague. Don't be vague. You will see it in the template I'm going to share. I don't want to dwell so much on the points, but again, I just think I should clarify and talk a little bit about all the points I'm going to share in the template so you know how to use it. So the fourth point is why Canada and what's your program of choice. Again, it's an expository essay. You really want to make sure that everything links to the story that you started. What that was what worked for me, and I just think I should really clarify that I'm not an expert in this. I'm just talking about what has worked for me. So you really want to be specific with your purpose. The next thing is your financial proof. I'm going to talk about this when I'm going through the details. Then the next thing is your home ties and career plans after study. So for your home ties and career plans after studies, I know the home ties most people talk about is family and maybe assets and all of the stuff. But there are actually other home ties that IRCC considers that I discussed in my SOP that I think you'll find useful. Then the last part is the conclusion. So now let's go to the template itself. So here's what the template looks like. When you come, you're just going to see everything like this. So I recommend that you just copy and paste. So copy it, paste it into a new document, and then follow this format as it is. So as you can see, the first thing was my address, who I was writing my letter to, the and introduction. So for my introduction, I talked about myself. What's my name, my age, and I'm expressing my intention to go study at XYZ, which is a designated learning institution in Canada. For example, know that PAL is very important. You might want to mention that you've been issued your PAL. I don't know what the process of PAL is. I didn't have to get PAL when I was coming to study in Canada. Then you go straight into your education and employment history. As I mentioned earlier, I like to use subheadings, and the first subheading I used was education and employment history. The next one is motivation for pursuing further studies and further education in Canada. Then I talked about why Canada and the program of choice. Then I talked about financial proof. Now this has drastically increased, and when I came into Canada, the living expense I needed to show was just 10,000, but now it has jumped, it has doubled. So it's basically 20,000 now. So you really want to calculate that with the remaining of your tuition when submitting your application, right? Again, I'm not giving an advice. I'm just sharing my templates with you guys, right? So home ties and career plans after study, and I did this declaration. It's not important, but again, I just thought it necessary to do. So now let's just go through some of the paragraphs and let's discuss some things that I mentioned in my SOP. I already have a degree, right? And coming to study in Canada, I needed to show something different to show that, okay, beyond the degree I have, I want to come and study. I want to study something relating to business. I have a degree in mass communication, right? I studied mass communication up to master's level, and now I'm coming to do something relating to business. There might be a disconnection there, right? So I had to find an aspect of mass communication that deals with business, right? So in case you're going through this SOP, that's the story I was trying to tell. So mass communication now coming to study something relating to business, right? So First thing that I did was I mentioned my degree, talked about my internship experience, my work experience, but I was really tilting towards the management aspect of everything I'd done. Just follow up. And at the end, I was smart enough to mention that my work experience in the last 6 years has been around brand communication and agriculture. And specifically, I worked in marketing communication department. So I've already captured or summarized everything that I was trying to say, that it's actually related to business and it's related to management. So coming from mass communication background, but all of my experiences has evolved around marketing and uh, business management. So my motivation for studying in Canada, I mentioned the fact that I want to gain a global perspective, right? Again, I said with over 6 years experience working in marketing communication and agriculture industry, I'm exposed to different types of field in marketing. I listed a few things, and I said, however, my current knowledge is just a fraction of the totality of how to become successful in managing agricultural business, right? Thus, I've decided to broaden my knowledge or to broaden my understanding by going to study abroad, right? So that was the argument I made for pursuing a study in Canada. And I also mentioned that I'm keen on learning from a Canadian institution, right? And I hope to come back to my own country after my studies. So you will see all of these things in the template I'm going to share with you. Then, why Canada and the program of choice? So one of the reasons I mentioned as to the why I chose Canada was because Canada is a very diverse country and it's has a very low crime rate, peaceful environment, and the educational system is very, very competitive. People coming from different backgrounds, right? I mentioned that. Then I also mentioned the fact that the institution I was coming to study has a core focus, right, in the course, like more like they are specialized in the course I want to study in Canada. So I don't just want to go to any institution, but because I'm interested in agricultural management, I want to come to a school that has a track or that has a space for people who are interested in managing businesses that are agriculture focused, right? That was the thing I made. That was the argument I made rather. Then financial proof, I mentioned my tuition deposits. I also paid, I had the opportunity to pay my first semester tuition, and my winter semester tuition was already in the process. I mentioned that. Then this is where it gets a bit tricky because IRCC wants to make sure that it's not just lump sum that you just put in to show for your proof of fund and all of the stuff. So I mentioned that I sold some assets and genuinely I had some assets. I'd bought some assets and all of those things. I showed proof of that. So for your proof of fund, you can show proof of assets. You can use your family. You can show study leave. You can show pay slip. You can show, like, there are just a lot of things. I know most people tend to use their assets for home ties, but I think you can use it for both. Use it for your financial proof of fund, right? And also use it for your home ties. It can go both ways because now you have assets, shows that there's liquidity coming that you're converting into asset, right? For you to have that much asset, obviously, you have enough money. And I made an argument that I liquidated some of my assets to invest in my education, which was very, very spot on, right? And that was it for me. Then my home ties, this is where it gets very, very tricky for most people because I think one of the most frequent reason that people get denied, aside from proof of fund, is not being able to show enough home ties. So one home ties I showed was my family. I discussed that I have a very close relationship with my parents, my siblings, and all those things. Then I also mentioned the fact that I belong to a community. I'm a volunteer, and there are communities that I volunteer for. And in my overall document, when I was submitting, I shared pictures of my engagement in this community. So IRCC also wants to know that you have a connection, even if it's not your family. They want to make sure that you're a part of a community or you belong somewhere. And I was able to write on that. And I said that I will miss facilitating and mobilizing community advocacy program in my community. And I mentioned that I've been a part of every community program over the past 7 years, and I was able to show pictures of it. But I mentioned that I will continue to participate in some of these programs virtually, which made great sense. And I made an argument that on the long time, after my studies, I'll go back to my own country to continue to educate farmers and to replicate some of my knowledge in the place I currently work and all of those things. And I also mentioned again, I think this is a very, very important one. Mention the specific date that you're going to leave Canada. I think it's very, very important. So I mentioned that I'm going to leave Canada on so and so day. It doesn't mean you necessarily have to travel that day if you're, for example, your graduation is not on that day. So of course you want to attend your graduation and all those things, but just mention that you're gonna leave when your program ends. And I recommend you mention a date that you're going to leave Canada. It sounds more convincing that way. I recommend it. I'm not an expert in this, but I did that. Then I went ahead to my declaration, and that's all. So if you have any question, if you have any difficulty, if you don't know how to use this template, please reach out to me. I'm happy to help. I'm happy to support. Basically, we've come to the end of the video, and I hope you find it useful. Feel free to share, feel free to subscribe, and just hit the subscription button. Please and please hit the subscription button. Yeah, thank you, and see you next time. And next video, I'm going to discuss how to apply for a study permit extension. I hope you subscribe to this channel so you see every valuable resources I share. And I won't just share things based on random information I find online. I will share things that I have used, and I'm going to share my samples with you all. So thank you once again for subscribing to my channel, and see you next time. Bye.